Hi Peter, today is Tuesday, March the 22nd, 2016, and I'm Joan Gremont, and Lynette Rakusen is working the camera, and we're very happy to have this opportunity to interview you.
Nice to be here, and I'll be happy to tell you everything that I know.
Great. Talk about life in South Africa, what you know about when and why your family originally came to South Africa, and share something about their lives in South Africa.
We go back a long way. My grandparents came, two of them from Latvia, and one from Moscow, and the other one also from Latvia. They came here in 1898 they came,
Okay.
and from there they started a business in 1903. One in the soft goods business, the other one in the concession store at Modderfontein Dynamite Factory.
Okay.
My dad was actually born at Modderfontein Dynamite Factory, and from there it just developed. They were both entrepreneurs, they were great philanthropists, they were very involved, particularly my mother's parents were very involved in the Jewish community and Jewish affairs. And they were very philanthropic with what they did. Interesting enough, when Helena and I got married, we had all four grandparents, my grandparents, at the wedding, and all four were over 90. They died shortly afterwards, but it was quite a unique situation to have them all there. I was probably closer to my mom's parents because they lived closer to us than to my dad's parents, but they were all fine. My dad's mother was a tyrant, if there was anything that you could say. She ruled the whole family for better or for worse, and often it was for worse, but she was there. But Dad came from quite a big family. He had three sisters and himself. The girls were married. One married Dr. Abelson in Cape Town, one married Herbert Maasveld in Johannesburg, and the other one married Izzy Schlapperberski. And we were just all involved together. My mum didn't get on all that well with Dad's parents for whatever reason, and I don't know, and I never even tried to find out, but it was, like in most families, it just didn't work out, I guess. But they were fine. They started and they built up, particularly Dad's father built up a big business. Started in 1903, and he had this concession store which he moved to Johannesburg and started this nuclear smelting works, which is an iron and steel business, merchanting. And from that it grew. He bought a small piece of land in Elof Street, which turned out to be 4.5 acres. At that stage it was probably for nothing, but it developed, and they were there. I mean, he started the business in 1903, and it was going for 90 years before he passed away, and and they sold the business. So it was just amazing. My dad and my grandfather died within 6 weeks of each other, which was a tremendous shock to everybody. My dad's dad actually came to the business every single day, and almost till he died. He was like the first person there, and I can remember so clearly, we had to open the mail on his desk. Mm-hmm. And if we opened the mail and we didn't cut the envelope nicely, etc., and threw the envelope in the trash can, he would pick it up and put it back there and say, "You use that as a scrap pad, you don't throw those things away." And that's how we were brought up to know about things. But it was a family business which was very good to the whole family for a long time. But when my granddad died and Dad died, things went sour, and there was a lot of infighting with the family, which wasn't great. But we decided to sell the business. The sale of the business, because there were so many shareholders involved, because it was their parents and their children, and the children had married, and we had outsiders in, etc., etc. They only wanted the best price that they could get for it. It wasn't a good deal at all. Eric Sampson wanted to buy the business, which the condition was that I stayed on and everybody else went, and I wanted to go with Eric, which it made sense, plus the fact we were very friendly. but it didn't work out either, and we ultimately sold it to a company called Rand London. And Rand London was a shell on the stock exchange which basically bought up anything that they could buy and bring it under one umbrella, and they were going to float it into a huge organization, which also didn't happen. It was interesting. I did not enjoy going to visit the coal mines. I had some pictures here of going into a coal mine. I went into a coal mine for about 50 yards, turned around and went out. There was no way as I was going in there. I was claustrophobic. Pitch black, you couldn't see a damn thing. So it was interesting, and we used to fly from place to place because they had their own aircraft at that stage, and it was interesting. But for 2 years, I had a 5-year contract, and after 2 years I said, listen, either you pay me out and I go, and the other alternative is don't pay me out, I'm going irrespective. So we left at that stage, and I went into business. A business had started with Alan Hepker. I joined Alan, and we developed that, and it became Security Centre in South Africa, which was similar based to what I ultimately started when I came here. It was just a new concept in security. We tried to tell people what is available, because people were really not aware of anything that was available. Security was, you know, put in an alarm system as cheap as possible, and that's it. But that really, you know, my philosophy was don't put it in because it's not going to work for you. So we started at Royal Lane, and that was great. I really enjoyed that. We built an actual house in a store to show people everything what is available, what they should or shouldn't have, and it's up to them what they wanted, but at least they could see from personal security, from domestic security, from external security, lighting, gates, anything that they were. They could either buy it and put it in themselves, or they could buy it and we would install for them. It made no difference. But at that stage, before I actually even started the business, we had come here on a visit about 2 years before, and I was introduced to a fellow by the name of Gil Brunneman. And Gil had his own security company, and for better or worse, Gil and I just hit it off. And he said to me, if you ever come to this country, contact me and I will give you a job, because I want to give you a job. So I came back to the hotel and told Alina, and I said, you know, he's offered to give me a job. And of course she said, well, you know, I've heard that story before. Yeah. So anyway, off we went, and we came back about 2 years later. And I phoned him and I said, Gil, I'm here. He said, where are you? I said, I'm here in Dallas. He said, okay, can you come to the office tomorrow? I said, absolutely. Went to the office. It was a Wednesday. He said, when do you want to start? I said, whenever you want me. He said, okay, Monday morning. And he did everything for us. He sponsored me in here. Without him, we would never have made it. He got me a work permit. He sponsored us. I mean, what he went to, I don't think he really was aware of the paperwork that went with this, etc. Because up until he got involved, we were messing around with an attorney in Fort Lauderdale, the biggest messer ever. Nice guy, Jewish boy, highly recommended by some South Africans here in Dallas, and nothing worked. It just was thousands after thousands after thousands down the drain. It got so frustrating because he lost Helena's papers, he lost Gregory's papers, and when we had to go, I mean, we just got tired of going down to 35 and standing in line at 4 o'clock in the morning at the offices down there. And it was just chaos. So Gil stepped in, and it was amazing. We got rid of the attorney in Fort Lauderdale. He subsequently got divorced, and he blamed his messing around on his divorce. I mean, he lost Gregory's papers, and when we said to him, well, what do we do now? He said, you start again. We said, what do you mean start again? After all, he said, yeah. He said, anybody can lose a piece of paper in an office. So we started again. I was ahead of them, and ultimately, after going down and down and down to the INS offices, Helena jumped ahead of me, and she was called to be sworn in before I was. Yeah. So I thought, what the hell is this all about? So I thought, no, I've got to do something. I phoned Kay Bailey Hutchison, and I said, I've got to see you. She said, okay, when can you come? And we set a time. I went around, I told her our story, and she said, okay, they have to answer me in 30 days in writing. If they don't, this is to the INS, there's a drama. Within 2 weeks she called me. She said, we've located your papers in Nebraska. I said, where the hell is Nebraska? Anyway, she got the papers back, phoned me and said, come round to the office. And she then helped me submit the papers again, and a couple of months later we were sworn in, Helena and I. It was really almost desperado stations, etc. We were running out of money. I mean, we spent tens of thousands, Joan, literally tens of thousands. Yeah. It was just horrific. But Gil Brunneman was, I mean, if there was a saint in my life, that's Gil Brunneman. He's still around. I don't see him much, but I just, wherever I can use his name, wherever it comes up, etc. I mean, he's just been fantastic. So, you know, we started a business. Interesting enough, and I'm not telling things out of turn, but when we started in Royal Lane, he said to me, look, I want you to have your store there. You're going to work out of your store, but you're going to work under me. So you go out and sell, and I will come with you, because he took me everywhere that he went so I could learn from him, and he knew everybody. He knew the Jewish community in Dallas like the back of his hand. So after about probably 18 months to 2 years, he said, look, you've got a few customers, but what I'm going to do, I want to sell my business. And he said, if I sell my business, I'm not sure that they'll want you or that you will want them. So at this stage, I wasn't licensed. He said, I want you to get your license in Austin, which I studied for, when I got my license, and came back and said, okay, I'm letting it be known that I'm selling my business. So as far as they're concerned, also what I'm going to do for you is, because you don't have the financial backing and because you don't have a cash flow, I'm going to give you 100 of my monitored accounts. And you can have those monitored accounts and monitor them, and you can pay me a figure which we will determine as and when you can afford to do it. But at least when I sell the business, you're on your own and you're away. And I never looked back from that day. He helped me. He was still always in the background. As it happened, he sold his business. It was resold 3 months later, and it was sold to people in Chicago. It was a mess. So thank goodness he had the foresight, and I listened to what he said. And we started, and we got into this retail business, which was great, except the retail hours were horrendous. I also, better for worse, I took in a South African who was a client of ours in South Africa, who came here, didn't have work. I took him in as a partner into the business. Disaster. Had to get rid of him, finished up in court, cost more money again, and it was just... So we stayed at Royal Lane until our lease was up. And when our lease was up, Henry S. Miller came to me and he said, I've got a great deal for you. I said, what's that? He said, this is what I'm going to be. This is what you're paying now, and this is what you're going to be. I said, you know, it's an outstanding deal for you, not for me. I'm out of here. So we went up to Plano. We started again in Plano. We were in Plano for 7-8 years, which again was terrific. The retail hours are a killer, because it's supposed to be from 10 until 6, but it starts from 8 until whatever. Again, we're there for that period of time, and it was before anything happened. There was Will's Restaurant. I don't know if you remember. Will's Restaurant was at the corner of Park and Preston. And there was nothing there. That shopping centre with Whole Food, nothing there. It was lovely. Trees and lawns and one thing. It was great. Same thing happened. This time it happened with Weitzman. Also came to see me. I had a great deal for you. I said, what's a great deal? Same story. I said, bye, I'm out. We decided that there and then we'd drop the retail side because it was too stressful. It really was. I guess my kids, like most kids, no, we don't want to work on Saturdays, and we don't want to work at 6 o'clock, etc. So we went away and we decided to go back to where we were in Addison, and we'd start just installing and servicing and monitoring. And that's where we went, and that's where we are today. And that's what we still are doing, for better or worse.
All right, interesting. Can I just back up a little bit? Let's get back to South Africa. Tell us a bit about your life in South Africa, your schooling, where you met Helena, when and where your children were born.
In one word to sum it up, was paradise. We lived a life in South Africa which, you know, I was very close to my parents, and when Dad went up north in the army, I forget when it was, in the 1940s, etc., it was the done thing for Jewish parents to get rid of their pain in the neck children and send them to boarding school. So I went, in 1950, I went to boarding school at Hilton, which truly, and I think you've seen the pictures, and I'll show you a picture. I mean, there is no school that I have seen or know anything about that had the facilities, the grounds, and everything that went with it.
So that's Hilton College outside of Durban.
It's outside Pietermaritzburg.
Peter
It was on Hilton Road, and it was there. It was predominantly only boys' school. There were only 400 kids there. It was totally boarding, but it was, and totally self-sufficient. They grew their own vegetables, they had their own cows and their own milk and one thing and another, and latterly they had their own meat, which they started, etc. So you could take a course in agriculture, which embraced all those things. But it really was amazing. Our days there started at 5:30 in the morning. The entire school had to come out onto the lawn in front of the school and do PT. It didn't matter whether it was rain or snow or ice or whatever it was. And believe me, when the snow on the Drakensberg and the winds blew, it was cold. Anyway, we were there, and I mean, the facilities were unbelievable. I enjoyed every bit of it after the first year. I mean, the first year for me was hell. Prefects at that stage were allowed to cane people who were the students who were there in the presence of a master. And it didn't matter, and I mean, but you had such respect for the, you could be walking around and I could say to the fellow I was walking with, that guy's a bit of a, you know what, and he said, excuse me, what did you say? And I said, repeat it? Okay, straight inside, bend down, you've got 4 of them. It didn't do me any good, but for the first 3 months, you could only be whacked once a week. I was whacked every single week for the first 3. I couldn't do anything right. I thought, what the hell? Whatever I do is wrong. Anyway, I got over it. It didn't hurt me. I feel better for it. But the camaraderie, the discipline, the togetherness was unbelievable. It really is. I mean, I've just got now, I mean, our 60th matric anniversary is on the 24th of April. There are over 120 people coming. I didn't even know that so many people were still alive, because it was not only our matric class, it was 3 years in a row, but 1950, 51, 52. So, I mean, it was just amazing. I mean, the school life there was great. I never used to go back to Johannesburg for vacation, unless it was for the long school holidays. It was quite interesting, because there were only 5 Jewish boys at Hilton.
Total in the whole school?
Total.
Yeah.
So when it came to, you know, the holidays, one thing, they were there, they treated us fine. We still had to go to chapel every single morning and twice on Sundays. It also didn't hurt me, but I learned a lot about the other half living. But I never used to go back to Johannesburg for vacation. I used to go down to Durban, and families there from kids who were at school, we used to go down, and we used to have the most unbelievable time on it. At the end of the vacations, if we were in Johannesburg, we used to have an absolute ball, because we had to go back by train. So Hilton College was here, and St. Anne's, the girls' school, was there. So what happened is that St. Anne's were in the front of the train, then there was a dining car, and the boys at the back. So when you left Johannesburg station, you all bye, 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 etc., etc. By the time you got to Germiston, you got off and you changed into wherever you wanted to go. So we were met at the school where we used to get off, and we met with trucks with wooden frames around them. We used to stand, and you had to hold on to those frames, because they took 30, 40, 50 kids there, and it was like cattle trucks. That's what they were. But there was frames around there so you could hold on so you didn't fall off. We used to have our caps or our hats. We used to have straw bashes, etc. And the senior guys used to take the bash and, you know, throw it over the side of the truck, and, you know, then they come to you and say, where's your bash? You have to have a... I mean, we learned a lot, I want to tell you. It didn't hurt us, I promise you. But the facilities of the school were amazing. Didn't think so then, but now, I mean, there is no school that I can even think of or know of, and including the facilities at a school like Greenhill or anything like that, they don't have what we had there. They just don't. And it was amazing. I mean, the school was situated on 4,000 acres, and you had the freedom. In fact, on Sundays, you had to leave the school perimeter. You had to go and buy your rations at the school store, whatever you wanted, whether it was cold drinks or sandwiches or whatever, you buy that, and you used to have to get out of school by 11:30 and only come back at 5. Summer, winter, rain, doesn't matter, anything, etc. We used to have, I mean, summer we used to go rafting down the Gainey River. I mean, we had a great time. Winter we used to make fires and lie under pine needles, and I don't know if you've ever lain on pine needles, but they're not the most comfortable. But we cooked if we wanted to, we made fire. I mean, it was just, we grew up. And it was great.
After Hilton, what did you do after that?
After Hilton, I came back, and my dad said to me at that stage, do you want to go to university to study or to play? I said, to play. He said, well, that's fine, go find a job. So he wouldn't have me in the business. He said, somebody's got to bring you back down to reality, etc. You're too full of it, and you stop. So I went and served my apprenticeship as a motor mechanic. It was opposite in Van Vella Street. I don't know if you remember Van Vella Street at all, but it was opposite the African Beer Hall, and they used to stand outside there with big drums and cook mealies or whatever, they barbecued mealies, etc. I used to get sent across the road there, go and get mealies for lunch, or go across there. I'll just wash my hands. No, go and get the mealies. Come back and there's grease all over the mealies and whatever, etc., etc. My first day at the garage there, a guy said to me, look, I'm going to help you and I'm going to sort you out. I said, fine. So he takes one of those rolling things where you go underneath the motor car, and he says, this is the car, and you slide underneath there, and I'll tell you when to stop because you'll find a bolt which is the sump for the oil sump. Now you undo that bolt, and then we'll tell you what's from there. So of course you undo the bolt and the oil just comes all from head to tail. I was laughing and carrying on. I said, now what? You'll never do that again.
This is your initiation, right?
It was terrible. But I learned a lot and saw a lot, and I mean it was fun. And then after that, unfortunately, I'd been there for it took me 3.5 years to graduate there, and then I contracted polio. And I was actually on a hockey tour in Rhodesia, and I got hit under the eye here, and it's just everything went wrong. I couldn't see properly. I was feeling sick. I couldn't wee, and they said, listen, you can't stay here. We're going to fly you back to Johannesburg. So they flew me back to Johannesburg, and our house doctor then met us, and he said, I don't like this. I'm going to put you into the isolation hospital. I'm going to give you a lumbar puncture, and we'll see what's wrong. And they never were really 100% clear whether it was polio, meningitis, or encephalitis. They didn't know. But I was in a ward with everybody who was there, from little kids in tents and older people, and it was just amazing. I was there for roughly 4 to 6 months. I was there, etc. I was paralyzed from the waist down. I couldn't walk at all. The doctor at that hospital happened to be a lady who was a rag queen. Her name was Robbie Bruckner, and when Robbie came, used to come, I get choked. When she used to come into the ward, everybody from, who was lying like this and couldn't move, would say, would manage to get up and look at Robbie, etc. And we just convinced that Robbie got us out of there, etc. Nobody could visit us. My sister and brother-in-law were overseas. He's a doctor. They came back. Parents used to stand outside the glass there and wave to me. He was allowed to come in. So it was tough, but it was what it was, and and I suffered for about a year with the most excruciating headaches. I couldn't go in the sun. It was just awful. Got over that. Worked for about a year at Mosenthal's. I was in their hardware department. I've still got my first paycheck. I think it was something like £19 something for the month, etc. Had enough of that. So I had the opportunity of going abroad with 3 of my real close friends. So the 4 of us decided we were going to tour Europe. We got on the Windsor Castle and off we went overseas. We toured Europe for 1 year. We went from London, from Dover to Ostend, and then drove all the way up through, then it was Holland, Belgium, up through Switzerland, Germany, up Scandinavia, and came all the way back again down through France, Spain, and back to Rome. I mean, we bought a vehicle and we lived in this vehicle. I mean, it was a dormobile, which is similar to what the Volkswagen combis are here, except it had a roof that went up and you slept two at the bottom and two at the top. We bought bicycles, put them on the front, and off we went. We soon realized that we stayed at camping grounds, which were, I think, something like equivalent of 5 shillings per night per vehicle, okay, throughout Europe. We very quickly learned that we should see things while we're there. So we used to find American buses who were touring with kids, and we used to follow them. And when they got to a museum, we used to park our car and go in with it as part of the... We also used to, when we came out of that, we used to go to the best hotels, wherever they were. We go straight into the bathrooms, we take all the soap and everything that was available. We then used to go into whatever the writing rooms were, etc., and take all the writing paper. And then we used to write home on all this fancy writing paper. My parents said, "What the hell do you think you're doing? Where are you getting this money from?" I said, "Don't worry about it." But we had a ball. We finished up in Rome, and I stayed in Rome for 1 month while the Olympics were on in 1960, which was phenomenal.
And then when did you meet Helena and when did you get married?
I met Helena when she was working for Meister Publicity. I had a very good friend of mine who's here in Denver by the name of Lewis Cohen. You may know Lewis, not Lewis and Beryl. She was from Miss Edblow, and etc. Lewis fancied Helena, but he said, "I work with her, I can't take her out." Told her that, "I've got a guy for you." She said, "Don't worry about guys, I've got my own guys, you don't have to worry about me," etc. Anyway, one day he calls me and he says, "I want you to come by at lunchtime." And he brought Helena down, and we met in, God, I forget what the street, in Market Street, I think it was, outside, hi, etc., etc. And then I started trying to date her. She used to play hard to get. But she didn't realize that I was playing cricket on Saturdays and Sundays. So if I didn't phone on Monday for Saturday, look, I feel I'm busy, I'm going out. It suited me down to the ground because I played cricket on Saturday afternoon. I was exhausted. I stayed home Saturday night and started playing cricket all day Sunday. So it didn't matter to me until she clicked onto this. And then she used to come with me to cricket, and we just developed, and it was great.
Got married, when did you get married?
In 1962.
And then when were your children born?
Brian was born in 64, Daryl in 66, and Gregory in, I think it was 68. I'm not sure of the exact dates. I should know them, but I've got
That's
them
all
here.
right. All right, so when did you make the decision to leave South Africa and why?
We made a decision to leave after Daryl and Brian they'd been in the Army, or the Air Force, and they'd served their time there, and we just felt, not knowing and no crystal ball, etc., that we didn't believe that South Africa going forward was going to be the South Africa that they knew growing up. So we said to them, "Look, we don't know. You've got the opportunity. We're going to send you out of South Africa to go to college wherever we can get you in, and you can go to college, graduate, and then you can decide. You want to come back to South Africa, that's fine. You want to go to India, that's fine. It's your decision. Don't ever say to Helena or myself, 'You made us go,' or 'You made us stay.' We're not there. It's your decision." We tried all over. When Brian graduated from Voortrekker Hoogte in Pretoria, we got hold of the college book here in Dallas. Ignorant, stupid, we didn't know. We looked at this book and thought, "Are you kidding me? We've got Wits, and we've got one in Durban and one in Cape Town." Anyway, we applied to about probably 30 different colleges. We got positive responses back from about 6. When I saw the price, I said to Helena, "There's no ways." Anyway, we persevered and we followed up on 3 of them, which we liked because we knew the weather in Florida was good, we knew the weather in California was good, so those are where we went. Brian at that stage was an above average golf player, and that was coming out all the time until he actually got offered a scholarship at NTU in Denton. And that's how we came here. We didn't know, much about Texas. We knew that Hilton and Maureen are here, but we weren't that close because, they were in Boston and one thing, and we hadn't kept up with them all that time. But we knew they were here. Denton, we thought, "What the heck is Denton? Where's Denton? We never knew anything about Denton. So we got Brian, and they accepted him, and he came over. And he started, first of all, they sent him to Paris Junior College. He spent, I think, 4 or 5 nights at Paris. He said, I can't do this, I'm out of here. And he went back to NTU. And he flourished there, and he graduated there. He played golf there, and he graduated with a business degree. And he'd been here about maybe 6 months, and he said, if you want to see me, come visit, because I'm not coming back. And at that stage, Darryl had finished his term, and he actually got Darryl into NTU as well. We didn't do anything. He got Darryl in there. How, why, what? We didn't ask questions. We just knew that they were there. And Darryl was there, and he decided he wanted to do physical therapy, and they don't have a department there. So we pulled strings of everybody we knew, etc., and he managed to get him into Southwest Medical School, and he graduated from there. He also said, I'm not coming back. So that's when we started to put the wheels in motion, which was, all I can say was nothing short of a nightmare. We actually waited to do anything until Helena's father died, because he would have had a heart attack if we would have gone. My dad had died, my mother was alive, and she said, go, I think you need to get out of here. And that's when we started putting the wheels together, and we put it all together, and we came here in September of '87.
And once you were here, did you arrange for any other friends or family to join you? Did anybody come?
Not really. I mean, we talked a lot about what was here, and, you know, we didn't really know enough. We were here, we were like new boys, we were finding our feet, etc. So, yeah, we talked a lot about how great it was, and, I mean, we were welcomed here by people that and I can remember we bought this house that we're staying in, and so Helena came over and met with Maureen Israelson, and I had done previously about 6 months, come over here and done all the legwork with realtors and one thing or another. Maureen said, throw them away, I've got the houses for you. So they came, and Helena actually bought this house without, she said, I'm buying. I said, that's fine, price is good, etc. So we bought this house and came straight here. Coming over, she said to me, what happens if you don't like the house? I said, what options have I got? Didn't have the funds, didn't do anything, etc. I said, of course I like it. You like it, I like it. It's not a problem. Through the Israelsons, we didn't know the Recusers at that stage. But when we were unpacking here, all of a sudden, Headley and the girls arrived, and they said, well, where are you going to sleep? And we had a folding stretcher. So Headley said, no worries. He said, girls come. He took the girls and went away. Came back about maybe an hour later, with mattresses on the top of his car, with the girls holding the mattresses up there, etc. Brought them in and said, this is what you're going to sleep on.
Right.
I mean, and people just embraced us, and I mean, I don't regret it at all. I mean, I miss South Africa for certain things, but I don't miss it to go back there. I have, you know, I've got family there, which cousins, etc., which I've grown away from. We keep in touch, but it's just, you know, a courtesy really than anything.
And do you have any siblings, and where are they?
I've got a sister who lives in Los Angeles, and she's got 2 daughters who live in Los Angeles and a son who's in Greensboro, North Carolina. Kevin in Carolina is an anesthesiologist. The younger daughter in LA is a physical therapist at Sinai, and the other one is some sort of a therapist, but for herself. She works on her own, but she teaches kids who are backward or struggling, and one thing or other. Very lucrative, and they are both, all of them, lovely kids. They really are.
Talk about citizenship. You are a citizen, and do you consider yourself an American? Do you feel American?
Joan, I don't know if I feel American. I feel that I'm a citizen, but still a South African. And, you know, it's a strange thing to say, but if I had the opportunity of running my business with the experience that I've had, which has been close on 30 years, I would run it with only South Africans. I find that we're on the same wavelength, we understand the same things, and they have the moral principles and ethics which I know, which I'm afraid lack in other people.
Pete, is there anything you want to tell us that I haven't covered, or anything you want to show us?
Yeah, not
Talk
really.
about?
I mean, I came here. I try to get involved. I've been a Rotarian for about 15 years.
Right.
Very interesting, wonderful, wonderful organisation. But again, after 15 years, I felt, you meet once a week, you've got things to do twice, and it was just becoming too much for me, etc. So I enjoyed it, I did it, I was successful, I got awards from Rotary, and I met a lot of wonderful people, really a lot of wonderful people. I met one American who remains nameless, who it was a shame. He was he was president of our Rotary Club, and he took us, Helene and I, for such a financial trot. It was absolutely horrific. But we rallied round and we've done what we had to do. We've got had no aspirations of making millions and billions. We wanted to live nicely, take care of our kids, and just be happy. And that's what, to a certain extent, we've achieved.
Good. Well, thank you, Peter. Enjoyed it.